Hello, my name is Amanda Wolf, and welcome to the case study of Philip Markoff, the alleged Craigslist killer. Today we are going to take a look at Philip Markoff and personality theory and see how they apply to each other. Before we get started, I just want to go over an overview of what we will talk about in this discussion. First, we are going to introduce you to the case study, Philip Markoff himself. And after we get done with the brief introduction of Philip, we are going to get right into an analysis of personality theory. Specifically, we will be talking about social cognitive theory today and how it applies to the case study. After we discuss how social cognitive theory applies to the case study in the sense of personality and personality traits, personality disorders, and such, we are going to analyze how social cognitive theory of personality applies to Philip Markoff's behavior. Let us get started. In 2009, Philip Markoff made his mark on the world, shocking headlines of major publications across the globe. Unfortunately, Markoff's name was not synonymous with any of his accolades. Rather, he was dubbed the Craigslist killer. The sudden allegations suggesting he was anything less than perfect were troubling for the people closest to Markoff. Philip typically projected a wholesome all-American persona and was characterized as a brilliant, loving, kind person. Though, after his arrest, a different side of Markoff came to fruition, and experts began to search for answers. As the pieces of the puzzle started to come together, criminologists expressed Markoff had developed a fractured identity. The criminology analysis drew attention to Markoff as an essential case study for understanding personality traits, personality disorders, and motivating factors correlated with the criminally insane, an area of psychology that is still very young. From a personologist's perspective, we would seemingly explore the innate characteristics of circumstantially observable behaviors. The obvious choice may be to delve into the humanistic perspective of personality theory and investigate Markoff's motivation to satisfy his basic needs, especially since deficits in love and affection have resulted in historical cases of severe psychopathy, and presumably on the surface, this seemed to be Markoff's primary motive. However, in this case, the burden of proof lies intrinsically with the social cognitive theory. The foundation of the social cognitive theory of personality emphasizes that personality is shaped through observation, behavioral adaptation or modeling, and implied genetic selection, stressing learning and cognition create uniqueness. Theorist Albert Bandura extended that people have the power to transform and change their environment. And as they change their environment, the environment will change and transform them. And as we can see here, it's a bidirectional model of reciprocal determination. Each factor moves in one direction and in the other direction synonymously and continuously. From social cognitive theory, researchers posit that early childhood traumas or genetic predispositions could result in maladaptation of personality, also known as a personality disorder. Personality disorders such as borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder have been considered personality disorders influenced by interpersonal relationships, primarily during developmental years. A possibility that Markoff suffered from a personality disorder can be observed in research linking early childhood traumas to trait characteristics for antisocial personality disorder or borderline personality disorder when provoked or facing rejection. And we saw this with Markov in the criminal analysis where there was increasing aggression, cognitive bias. He became hostile, and he had a false sense of perception. Yet another theoretical construct being considered to identify personality of serial killers is fractured identity syndrome. Though not exclusive to a precise etiology, fractured identity syndrome is theorized to also develop from early childhood trauma and social cognitive influences. Still, unlike a personality disorder where the entire personality is disrupted, only part of the personality is altered, and the affected individual can reserve the fractured portion of the personality in public. So it's almost like being two different people, but not at the same time. As already established, Markov fits the description of having fractured identity syndrome. Even after identifying him as a suspect, the investigators weren't entirely convinced that he had done it, or he was the suspect. At first, the experts and friends of Markov agreed his public persona did not resonate with that of someone who was a malicious criminal. But as evidence unearthed, it appeared that Markov was methodical, controlling, perverse, and when he was challenged, he became aggressive, and he allegedly escalated into a killer. Unfortunately, little is known about Markov's early childhood or his family life, but assuming society plays a great role in a developing personality, it was believed that the appearance of his sudden behavioral changes was a progressive change over time, most likely influenced by early life experiences. Moreover, Markov's supposed differing personalities are more evidence validating personality as a whole is contextual, circumstantial, and self-regulated, which is outlined in social cognitive theory. So to recap, the theoretical personality evaluation that has come up based on social cognitive theory of personality is that Markov was indeed trouble. He possibly suffered from a cluster B personality disorder, which we talked about borderline or antisocial personality disorder. And antisocial personality disorder is associated with psychopathy. And again, we identified that he most likely suffered from fractured identity syndrome. The criminologists identified that, and it's written in the textbook as someone who potentially is a serial killer has this syndrome, and it's linked to psychopathy. And that, lastly, these personality changes that all of the sudden appeared out of nowhere in this 7-day spree, they were thought to be habitual. And as evidence unearthed, they found that he, in fact, was doing this for a long time. And most likely, based on research, we can trace this back to early life experiences. More than likely, there was trauma there, but there is no concrete evidence that that happened. So this is all presumption. And unfortunately, we cannot evaluate Markov himself. So I thank you for joining me today. That concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please feel free to reach out. I am open to suggestions. and discussion. Thank you, and you have a wonderful afternoon.